animals. I work with a lot of different groups, okay? Have a lot of friends here in Gambia, okay? But I have a lot of experience in public speaking and teaching. I've done presentations for audiences of 200. And if you think you're nervous, try doing that, right? And I've lived all over the world. My last 2 years' work was in Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates. I was working for an entity there that did a lot of environmental work. Very interesting what's going on in the UAE in terms of sustainable development. But I have a lot of experience in speaking and teaching. And I just thought I'd just give you maybe a little advice. I don't know really how much experience you have. How many have done presentations before? Anybody done a presentation? Okay. Okay. In small groups, with visuals? Okay. All right. He asked me to come, when did you ask me to come? Yesterday, I believe. So this is kind of a last minute thing. I really made the cardinal mistake of public speaking, and that's preparation. I didn't really come prepared. I'm just kind of speaking off the cuff to you. Just going to give you some tips maybe that might help you a little bit. The first thing you need to do to be an effective speaker or presenter is to be prepared. If you're not prepared, you're going to have real problems. I once introduced an International Court of Justice fellow that I knew who worked in The Hague in Holland. I introduced him before a large audience, and I wasn't prepared. And the introduction was an absolute disaster. I completely embarrassed myself in front of like 100 people. So always be prepared as best you can, okay? And then the second thing you need to do is practice. Public speaking, presentations, you just have to practice. Somebody asked me one time why I talk to myself so much. I said, I'm not talking to myself, I'm preparing a speech. And the way you practice is you speak to yourself or get in front of a mirror and just practice. And the night before your presentation, you practice it, and you practice it, and you practice it. It's like going to a funeral and you have to give a eulogy. I had to give a eulogy for my father. It was the most difficult thing I ever had to write. It was a eulogy for my father, and speak at a funeral where I was very emotional, and I had to control myself and do a good job because it was for him, it was important, and I did a good job that day, very, very good job. So preparation is extremely important. I'm a social scientist, and I do a lot of, I objectify complex reality. I have to take very large, complex topics that are international in scope and scale and discern and distill them down to a content where people can understand what I'm trying to talk about. So preparation is very, very important. If you've never done a presentation or done public speaking, I mean, one of the biggest problems you confront is your own speaking ability. We all have different speaking abilities. Some of us speak loudly and clearly, and we articulate, and we make sense, and we engage our audience. Other people, quiet, shy, nervous. I've taught students who had never stood up in front of a class and presented, and some were so nervous they could not even speak. So that's just something that comes with time, working on your speaking ability. Okay, and the most important thing is gaining confidence. Once you gain confidence in your own ability, it becomes easy, it becomes enjoyable, right? So you have to speak to your audience loudly, clearly, engage them, look at them. You have to control your pace. Don't go too fast, don't go too slow. Look at your audience. Are there questions? Ask them questions. Engage them. Be authentic as best you can. Again, if you're not good at it, you're not good at speaking loudly and clearly, and you lack confidence, you just have to practice it. You just have to practice it. Okay? Okay, a few of you have done presentations, right? Okay. Today you're going to stand up here with visuals do a presentation. How many of you feel good about this? You're looking forward to it. You're excited. Are you? How many? Nobody? You're novices. Oh gosh. Okay. I once had a student, she got up to give a presentation and she couldn't even speak. Again, she was so nervous she couldn't even speak. I felt very sorry for her. She said, I just want to drop out of this class. I said, no, that's not an option. You know, sometimes you're extremely nervous. I don't care how many presentations you do, how many lectures. I used to stand up in front of a class for 2 hours with no notes and lecture. I can do that. I can talk about the war in Ukraine. I can talk about the Middle East. I can talk about international environmental policy. Whatever you want to talk about, I can do it. But that's just come from years of experience. And I still, if I have to give a presentation today, you send me to Washington, D.C., and I'm speaking to congressmen or senators or some well-known academic, I get nervous. We all get nervous. We always get nervous. But for me, because I enjoy it, once I start, it's a pleasure. And you've just got to relax and just do what you do. And don't worry too much about it. Everybody makes a mistake. Everybody misspeaks. It happens, okay? So today I hope that you're able to gain some experience going forward and you can enjoy doing this sort of thing. Okay. I think all of you work for government ministries, is that correct? Yes. Okay. You have meetings, you have to speak with people, you have to engage people. Okay. So, I don't know what else I mean, we can get into the complexities of speaking. I mean, body language is important as well. Body language. I once gave a speech and one of my good friends came up afterwards and she said, why do you keep trying to put your hand in your pocket? I had a suit on. I kept trying to put my hand in the side pocket, but it was still sewn. It was closed because it was still sewn closed. I couldn't get it in. So during the whole presentation, I'm trying to put my hand in my pocket. And so she noticed that. She said, well, why are you trying to do that? I said, well, I was a little bit nervous. It's just something I do. I like to put my hands in my pockets when I speak. I don't know. That's just one of the things I do. So body language is extremely important. You don't want to turn to the side or look away. You want to put yourself out there and don't get too nervous and move your hands around and all that sort of thing. Okay? Anything else I should talk about?
You know. Maybe that you want to introduce yourself.
Who I am and what I do?
Yeah, because they need to introduce themselves at the beginning. So
what I do?
Yeah.
What I've done in my past?
Yeah.
Wow, that's as old as I am, that might take a while.
The point is that they introduce themselves in a short amount of time. So
Okay.
How do you introduce yourself? Like
my resume.
Yeah, the resume in 1-2 minutes.
Okay. Born in Atlanta, Georgia, did my bachelor's at the University of Georgia in journalism, history, and political science. Moved to Washington, D.C., worked in a senator's office, worked on the Armed Services Committee where I was a national security analyst doing basically Russian studies. That was kind of my area. Energy policy, the geopolitics of energy is really my specialty that I developed. I did my master's at night at the American University in Washington. I worked all day in Congress. I'd take the bus out to school at night. I was going 12-hour days. For 3 years I did that. And after I finished my master's degree, I went and worked for an intelligence agency. And I was an intelligence analyst. Basically doing national security work, basically U.S. foreign policy, Soviet studies. I got into the Middle East a little bit because I was doing energy, so naturally I got into Middle East politics, which I really know a lot about, which I've done a lot of work, both academically and professionally, in the Middle East. Then I decided I got tired of government. I got tired of government. I got tired of working in a little cubicle with a bunch of people, and I felt confined. I was more of an academic. I was realizing I was more of an academic than an analyst, and I didn't want to be pigeonholed. So I had done my master's at night in international relations, and international relations is the study of the world political economy. It's a very big thing. You know, some people claim it's a subfield of political scientists, other people claim it's an academic discipline unto itself. But it's a vast area of knowledge, and so you kind of have to specialize in subfields. And my subfields were U.S. foreign policy and Soviet foreign policy in the Middle East. That's kind of what I chose to do. Along the way, I decided to get my PhD. I don't know why. I wouldn't advise it. I'm not sure what a PhD does you unless you want to teach. You know, if you're working in government, you don't really need a PhD. You might want to get a master's degree, but there are plenty of people smarter than I am and more successful than I am that don't have PhDs, even in my field. But I had to do it, and I applied to the London School of Economics and Political Science in London, and lo and behold, I got accepted. I'll never forget the night I got accepted. Everybody said, wow, you got into the LSE. It's one of the best schools in the world. I said, uh-oh, I'm in trouble. So I had to go to London, and I spent 4 years in London, and I wrote a 463-page dissertation on Russian foreign policy, particularly energy policy, which even today, if you follow the war in Ukraine and everything, energy pipelines, oil depots, tank